It's gonna get hot again. Well, what I thought I'd do today, actually we've done it before, but it's one of these constants. I'm gonna work on getting these trees back in shape. I think a lot of this you might have seen already, but I have a batch that are for student use. And well, in less than 2 months, this is what happened. So what I have to do is to get these back in. Okay, the first one is cork oak. So what happens as it matures, the trunk gets really corky. Actually, this is what they use to make the cork for your wine. So basically, I water these, well, the automatic watering every day. And then occasionally, if there's a string of hot days, I would hand water in between just to make sure. But generally, once a day watering is sufficient. So what we gotta do is to make sure that you don't get a whole lot of these really long ones and shorten them up like so. And it goes back into the bench. This next one is the olive. And almost all your olives, they sucker at the base. So you get rid of those. Now, this batch that I'm doing is what I recommend for mature people starting out bonsai. So this has, probably anywhere from 8, 9 to 10, 15 years of growth. Just because it's 10 years old with no training, that's not any good either. So I've been doing this at least 3-4 times a year for every one of my plants. And I got thousands of them. That's why I'm always busy. And I have to do these early in the morning while it's still cool. What happens if I turn on the fan, you'll hear this humming noise, so I have to get up early. Actually, right now it's a little past 7 o'clock. And by 9, I think I'll be done with video shooting. And then the real work starts. So anyway, this was the olive. So, interesting root flare, movement, and taper. Zelkova, and he has a tendency to do this all the time. It's very closely related to the Chinese elm, but I think this one is worse than Chinese elm in terms of shooting out these really long growths. No big deal, you just keep cutting it back. Now, if I had the time and did this every 2 weeks, I'm sure this will really turn out to be a nicer tree. But hey, every 2 months is more than I can handle. So no matter how hard you trim, especially in the summertime, these will grow right back. So this was the Zelkova. And you could see that it has a tremendous root flare, trunk, and movement. I bet you this is is the trident maple. And this has a tendency to shoot like this too. Just get around to cutting them off. You know, this bonsai is kind of interesting. If I didn't have to consider the economics, then I would make everybody start from this point. But it does get a little bit more costly. So later I'll be working on smaller material, especially for young people that don't quite have the resources, but they still want to do this. But those of you out there like me with gray hair, I say this is the minimum size that you should get. Okay, so you could see this one is very interesting too. Look at this is the simulated root flare. Actually, I think the root zone is over here, but I exposed it so it looks like that. This is probably more than 10, 12 years old. This is the snake bark maple. They call it snake bark because the bark, it has these lines that supposedly looks like snakes. This one isn't as prolific in terms of trying to grow, so I just have to do a light touch. So, well, on this bench where these came from, there must be over 100. And so I think about 2 months ago, I did the whole thing. So you could see that this one grew back a little bit less vigorous. And they're a vine. So trying to make a bonsai out of a vine took some doing. And out of the ones that I have on this table today, this is probably the oldest, maybe pushing 20 some odd years. Well, you know, ivies are easy to grow and they'll run all over the place. But to get it to have shape with a decent trunk, it takes time. So anyway, I think that's probably it. This is one of the older ones. And I think I've talked a little bit on the chapter on ivy. These could be defoliated. So you could sit here and cut off all the leaves. If that's too hard on your heart, then what you do is individually cut off the big ones, and then you'll end up with small one in its place. So there's multiple ways to do it, but once again, this one has good root flare, movement, and taper. This one is a pomegranate. I wish I had a little bit nicer one, but you know, pomegranates, especially when they have flower and fruit, it gets sold right away. That's why this still needs work and probably gets sold off in another year or two after it sets flowers. Okay, I got a problem up here. Long run, so I'm going to go like that and like that, just so that I could shorten it up. And then, since I don't have flowers to worry about. Now, this time of the year, if it has flowers, I usually try to leave the branch whether it needs cutting or not, mainly because people like flowers and fruits. So anyway, this too has a decent trunk, and then kind of goes up and it's on the skinny side, but you'll come around. So anyway, this is what I do. Boy, it's early in the morning, and then all this light is the morning sun coming through my window here. It's getting a little bit hot on this side. But anyway, this was just another one of those steps that I have to do to keep my materials in check. So hopefully you enjoy just hanging out with me while I do the work. So these were the materials for classes. I'll be doing some smaller stuff in later chapters, but this is the size that I recommend for mature audiences. This is Hiro saying goodbye on this chapter. I'll do another one. Well, since I have to do the work, I might as well just show it to you. So anyway, I'll see you again real soon in another chapter. Stay safe, everybody.